Welcome to the show which gives you crypto confidence. We want to help you navigate the sometimes confusing world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies and make smart, informed choices as a consumer. Brought to you by the marketing communications team at BlockSparks. Hello and welcome to the final episode of the Crypto Confidence Show for 2018. And it's a pleasure to welcome a new voice to the show today, my colleague from BlockSparks, Helen Moore. Hello, Helen.
Hello, good to be here.
Helen's our Director of Public Relations, which is a fascinating area of work in the cryptocurrency space. It's really not like doing PR in any other industry, is it, Helen?
Not really. In many ways, it's like going into another universe, in that some elements of it are really cutting edge. It's very, very fast moving. It's completely global, all online. But other elements of it are like being swept back to the 1980s, when I first started, in that a lot of the top crypto publications do want payment to publish your press release. And it's not like advertorial that you might see in a national newspaper or a lifestyle publication where it's, talking about a new car or something.
And clearly identified as being a commercial posting.
This is sponsored content, whatever. It really is paying, in some cases, rather a lot of money, thousands of dollars, literally to print a press release. And I suspect in the froth of the market that people went along with that, and the publications were making hay while they could. I suspect as the market matures a little, and with some of the fluctuations we've seen, that that practice will die out and it will bed down into more of an established media pack, as we see in other vertical markets.
Yeah, just as hopefully markets and projects will do the same. And we are going to spend a little bit of time at the end of this episode trying to polish our crystal balls and look ahead to what the new year might hold. But we wanted to get together in this end of year episode to have a look at what crypto's been like in the media generally in 2018, because we're ending the year with the bear market continuing, lots of mainstream commentators and news publications continuing to be very down on blockchain technology as a whole. Mainly, it seems to be because of the result of crypto prices, which is quite a leap. But the media is good at making leaps and generalizing, isn't it, Helen?
Yes. One of the things that's quite notable is how a lot of established journalists are completely down on crypto and blockchain. The words snake oil, scam are bandied around. Often the people that write about crypto, apart from the specific crypto publications, you do get some of the fintech and technology journalists writing about it as well. And I say some of them are just completely opposed to it. There are a diminishing number of people, but all around us, all of the big corporates have blockchain projects on the go.
Yep.
Whether they've announced them or not, or whether they're just sort of industry rumours trickling out. But the big boys are embracing it as a technology.
Absolutely. And the media is going to have to cotton on to that eventually and start to separate blockchain and technology from cryptocurrency pricing and start reporting the technology properly. People are still interested in crypto and Bitcoin, aren't they?
One of the interesting things that came out last week, that Google have announced that what is Bitcoin is the most asked question on Google. So I think that's quite incredible.
It's quite encouraging, really, isn't it?
Very encouraging.
We're working in marketing communications in this space, that people actually want to know this.
Yeah, so I haven't actually got the numbers to hand on how many people that would that would mean for it to be the top asked question. I'm sure we'll find it and put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes, definitely.
Yeah, but because it is really interesting. But, and, as comms professionals in this niche, we are obviously monitoring the media every day. And we are looking for that really big thing that will tip it over into the mainstream. And there are some really, really encouraging things. For example, Coinbase, which is one of the major wallets, have linked up with PayPal, which will make...
finally, you can take money out of Coinbase into PayPal.
Yeah, so you'll be able to interchange your crypto with your fiat currencies, and that will be much easier.
It sounds like that's rolling out mainly in the US at the moment. You still can't use PayPal to fund Coinbase, unfortunately, but I think they're just up against PayPal's payment reversal policies there, that the minute anyone raises a dispute, PayPal tends to come down straight in favor of the buyer. And I think that's just too risky for Coinbase to touch at the moment. But PayPal is obviously used around the world to move funds from one currency to another, and their fees are eye-wateringly high. I mean, I think it can be as much as 5%. To convert, just from euros to dollars or something with PayPal.
Well, I'm sure some of the new names in fintech will be along soon enough to make PayPal change its ways.
I think they're going to 13 billion profit in 2017. It'd be interesting to see how they've coped this year with all the challenger banks and emergent hybrid offerings coming out online.
You can use crypto on Revolut, can't you?
Yes, Revolut are offering crypto now. It's not a sort of true custodial solution. They hold your keys, but you can buy and sell a whole range of cryptos on your Revolut account, and you can do things like top up savings. So, scrape your loose change into steadily acquiring cryptos and things like that, which is quite nice. I think it's a good example of the kind of really public, friendly, accessible fintech that people want. And I know that in the same vein, we've also seen more institutional second-tier derivative type products emerging in crypto, like CMB futures and so on. Even NASDAQ launching the Bitcoin futures next year.
Yeah, NASDAQ. I mean, you really can't get much more establishment than NASDAQ to incorporate crypto, and say all of the big names are in merchant banking are looking to use crypto, and I think it is predicted that the main banks will start offering it. And obviously in this world we come across lots of new things that we can't talk about, but we have come across startups in the mainstream retail banking sector that will be offering those products that we're all familiar with, personal loans, credit cards, debit cards, secured loans, all that kind of thing, all of those retail products that you would get from your normal regular bank, but it's a crypto bank.
Yeah, I think this is what people need. And it's not going to please everybody. I think some of the purist sort of libertarian cypherpunk originators of crypto see it as completely separate from that financial infrastructure, the people who want to run their own nodes, be their own bank, hold their own keys and so on. And I can certainly see where they're coming from, and we would not be where we are now without their pioneering work. But at Crypto Confidence, we've always been about making crypto accessible for mass adoption, bringing in people who are used to using financial technology in their everyday lives, but have no desire to have that degree of technical knowledge or responsibility. And I think these kind of more hybrid kind of user interface type products are definitely the way the future's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we know, as interesting as blockchain and crypto is, and it certainly is for us because we live and breathe it. But for a lot of people, it's very complicated, and there's a big barrier between what people are used to and this whole new world. And unless you're prepared to put in some effort to learn how to do it, then you're just not going to break through. So it need these big brands and their might in the fintech world to make it more accessible, because the people doing the pure tech don't have those comms skills to roll out a B2C offering.
No, and that's where we need, we're still so early in the adoption curve. I don't know, some people say that we're not even into the early adopter phase. We're still in the kind of really weird, freaky people like us at the very beginning of the curve who are prepared to dabble in this stuff because the stakes are high if you mess it up. This is why it's a bit frustrating when you hear people criticising, because we're recording this on the 17th of December, even though it will go out at the end of the year. And it's actually the 1 year anniversary of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange first crypto futures offering exactly a year ago. But lots of people blame that for dragging down prices. And, from the all-time highs of Bitcoin 1 year ago, since then prices have been steadily in decline. And the markets want some of that volatility to be smoothed out, but obviously people who are speculating as individuals just against the long-term future of Bitcoin don't want people shorting it and trying to speculate about it. And I know a lot of people are very concerned. Andreas Antonopoulos, who we love, don't we, at BlockSparks, and we're all doing his MOOC with the University of Nicosia. We love you, Andreas, but he's very negative about Bitcoin ETFs and the idea of creating effectively paper representations of the very, very hard money that is Bitcoin, and sees that as potentially undermining some of the strength of Bitcoin altogether when people can trade secondary versions of it without actually holding it. So these are quite sophisticated arguments, and they are kind of a state of where the market is at the moment, I suppose, and the tensions between the people trying to bring accessible, user-friendly products to market versus the purists who are very deeply into the technology and really want to keep it where it is at the moment. But I mean, I still rather read those people arguing on Twitter than what some of the mainstream non-technical press is saying about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, which is mainstream press, that's what they call crypto. Everything is Bitcoin. Yes, that's the only one.
Yeah, so it's Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's bad because it's, terrorism and bombs and
don't forget the drug dealers.
Yes, drug dealers. Although there was an interesting one a few months ago in the ongoing investigations in the States about collusion with Russians, and a number of Russians were prosecuted, and they were tracked because of their transactions.
Yes,
crypto. They could be tracked on the blockchain. So. But that was buried deep in a very, very long court document, which I'm sure not many people read.
And what did the headline say? Russia using Bitcoin to scam.
Absolutely.
The fact that it was the blockchain's forensics that actually tracked them down gets buried completely.
Yes, yeah.
It's like this thing that happened last week. There was another attempt by scammers to use Bitcoin, and I saw this reported in a number of mainstream media. I've got an article in front of me from The Verge, which is normally pretty good at reporting technology. And their headline is Bitcoin scammers send bomb threats causing evacuations. Now, yes, they asked for payment of ransoms on this rather pathetic looking scam by the sound of it, using Bitcoin. But it's the fact that, that was the method of payment. If they'd said send a wire transfer, I very much doubt the headline would have been banking scam. On PayPal scam.
No, absolutely. No, Bitcoin is just sort of one of those bad words, and it does get lumped in.
Well, just chuck it in the headline. I mean, they sent their threats by email, but they didn't call it an email scam. Or they were probably wearing trousers at the time, but they didn't call it a trouser scam.
Yeah, maybe all these sensationalized headlines are why what is Bitcoin is the most searched term, because
absolutely, it's responsible for so much.
On mainstream newspapers that probably their demographic tends to be into the higher older age groups. So they would just say, well, what is it? I mean, I do know financially sophisticated people that obviously they've heard of it, but they've no idea how it works. And they are very, very conversant in all manner of conventional financial transactions at a very high level. But there is this barrier still between understanding what it is, what it does, how it functions, and it being lumped in with everything that's bad in the world, terrorism, environmental disaster.
Oh, yes. Well, we covered the environmental stuff quite strongly in episode 7, so I won't go back into how this is the year that Bitcoin has been blamed for melting polar ice caps and slowing down atomic clocks and preventing the search for extraterrestrial life because people are using their processors to mine cryptos instead of devoting them to the SETI search for alien intelligence. And it's all Bitcoin's fault because it's so evil.
Yes, so I mean, that is one of the good things about keeping such a close eye on all this reporting, is that we do have quite a laugh about it on a regular basis, because some of the reporting is preposterous.
It really is. It's just ignorant, though, isn't it? I mean, these are responsible journalists, usually in the technology departments of mainstream publications, occasionally in finance, but none of them seem to have grasped it's a separate category, and you do need reportage from people who are knowledgeable about the whole space and can actually say something intelligent about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But we do think it's moving on, and there are some really excellent journalists that are doing their bit, and that whole crossover. I mean, it's it's a currency. People are using it for business projects, are getting paid in it. And they're doing their bit to help explain. And obviously, my role is to liaise with all these fabulous journalists that can help us get that message out. So I think it will be interesting to see what happens next year.
Yeah, I think so. Things are going in the right direction, I hope.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I think the volatility of the market has sort of been a bit of a curveball, certainly in the last few months.
But again, it's because people just want to talk about prices, and that's kind of the least interesting thing, I feel like, compared to all the technological breakthroughs and all of the non-price related projects like Dovo, who we spoke to in the previous episode. What they're doing with blockchain data is absolutely fascinating, and I've no idea what their token is worth, because I understand that provides a network effect for their whole business. They need to know what it's worth and to care about it. But it depends. If you love the technology and you're not just there to speculate, then it's not interesting.
Yeah, lots of people go about their daily life having absolutely no idea about the value of certain currencies. The pound has been very volatile in the last couple of years. And
for those right now
that are affected by it, you do know about it, but most people bowl along and, it doesn't play a part in their life.
No, you're absolutely right. Most people exist solely within a single fiat currency for probably 90% of their life or more than that, unless they're sending remittances via horribly expensive PayPal or Western Union or something. And in fact, I think that really sums up a lot of the adoption issues that we've got, is that the people who are probably best placed in terms of their access to technology and time and knowledge and everything else to actually dig into this are the people who are least likely to perceive the need, whereas the people who live with disastrous economies and hyperinflation and in some of the world's poorest and most desperate areas, they're jumping on this stuff. If you're in Venezuela or Zimbabwe, you understand why you need cryptocurrency. Nobody has to explain it.
And in fact, some of the most interesting stories that I think will emerge, I mean, they're out there already, but they're a little bit tucked away, are how people in the developing world are using crypto, and it is enabling them to have a completely different life, because vast tracts of the world are completely unbanked. I don't have normal bank accounts, don't have access to any of the facilities that first world countries take for granted. I mean, even in the West, the numbers are astonishing. Again, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but I think most people would be shocked at how many millions do not have a bank account.
Yeah, or have access to quite poor quality traditional financial services because they're at the lower end of the income or stable income sphere, so they might not have a good credit history. So if they want to borrow, then it's really expensive and difficult and things like that. I think that crypto has such potential to bridge those gaps, never mind in countries where, in Venezuela, where you need Dash or Bitcoin just to buy food to eat, or if you're in Afghanistan and you want to pay women to work for you, there are people using crypto in all sorts of incredibly creative ways in environments where the political control of money is much more of a factor in everyday life. And it's a real luxury for a lot of us that we don't have to think about that. And we can carry on with our euros thinking, well, that's worth roughly what it was yesterday. Buys me the same number of groceries, so I'm not too concerned about it. So, hopefully we will see more awareness, more reportage. I hope that BlockSparks, we can do our bit in telling some of the amazing stories of how crypto is being used in life-changing ways around the world, in places that maybe you'd expect it and others that you wouldn't. So there's lots of interesting things going on. But I mean, we're not going to try and make predictions. We're not futurists, and we're certainly not going to make predictions about price. But I think just to look briefly at some of the things we might expect to see in 2019, then we talked about institutional products. They're coming, whether the purists like it or not, and that's a good thing. My mum doesn't want to be her own bank. Most of the listeners to Crypto Confidence do not want that level of onerous responsibility for holding private keys at all times.
And Revolut have applied, and I think I don't know whether the application is ongoing, but to have an EU banking license.
Yes, they have. They've got an EU banking license, which
is going to change
a lot.
That's the crossover between the fintech group and this traditional banking area.
It's all going to merge into one, I think. We used to talk about challenger banks as a very separate category, and there are still issues. Like I remember trying to hook up a Revolut account to the company PayPal account earlier this year, and it was impossible, whereas now they've got the banking license. That would probably actually be okay. I would have to travel to another country to do a KYC on a bank account. But so I think we're going to see that whole category blending. Like Robinhood Exchange has just launched a credit and debit card. I think another trend we're going to see is more hardware, physical gadgets and manifestations, whether that's like the Syrian Labs have just shipped their blockchain phone with an embedded hard wallet. The HTC Exodus phone is coming in 2019. That will have the Brave browser or pre-installed so that people can use a blockchain-based driven platform for browsing the internet and have a lovely strict ad-free experience. Obviously, a lot of the tech we don't know about yet. There will be the trade fairs early in the new year, so we'll be keeping our ears to the ground for everything coming out of CES.
And I think there is a lot of pain in the traditional markets. I mean, not many people love their bank. And I think most people have regular issues. So I think once these new companies can actually reach out and get their marketing right, basically, so they're talking the same language as their audience. Because you don't need to know all the technology that goes on behind the scenes. It's like, when you turn the key in your car, you don't need to know how an engine works. So you don't need to know all the details of banking.
No, but somebody's designed that car knowing that you want to love it as a consumer, and you need to get from A to B and have certain user experiences. So
it's all about user experience. So if the startups can really put that level of effort into the user experience and their communication language that they do into developing the idea and the technology behind it, I think we will see some really interesting, completely new brands sort of forging ahead, as well as, you know, a really large existing brand adopting crypto, you know, an Amazon or a McDonald's or one of those really big global brands. We keep sort of waiting for that.
Something's going to break, isn't it? Something's going to tip.
I think so.
And we'll be ready for it. But I think there are so many people who are depressed and disappointed with pricing, particularly at the end of this year. And obviously there have been other casualties of 2018. We've seen a lot of ICO projects fizzle away and come to nothing. We've seen a clampdown of regulation. But from where we're sitting and the clients that we're working with, I think it's really important just to remember that there's so many positive things going on. There's some things we can talk about, some things we can't. We've got to wait and see how they unfold. But you've only got to look at the search results, look at the number of patents raised this year for blockchain technology by big global companies. People are putting their money behind this. And it would go back to Andreas Antonopoulos again. He used a brilliant analogy in a recent podcast about if you visit a farmer's market in winter and you look around you and you just see, you know, some knobbly old fruit and potatoes and things like that. And the last time you came was in spring and it was all salads and lush and green. And if you turned up in winter or just visited a farm, you'd look around and you might think, well, farming's dead. Farming's over. Farming's history. And actually, we are in a bit of a winter at the moment, but that's because all the growth is out of sight and everything exciting that's happening is underground.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
It's all germinating and just wait.
Absolutely.
We don't know what we've planted.
New things.
It's like when you scatter bulbs or something, you don't know exactly what's going to come up, but there are lots of people eager to see the results who've been tilling the soil very carefully. We'll be here as communicators to help prune and display the fruits of the labours. And I think we can conclude that going into 2019, it's all looking good. We've got some great episodes coming up at the Crypto Confidence. We're talking to some fascinating projects, and we've got some lovely interviews lined up for you in January and beyond. And we're very excited about what the future holds. So the future's bright, isn't it, Helen?
Absolutely. It's a really exciting area to work in. It's so fast moving and so much to learn, and a really great mix of people that, you know, really is global. You know, here we're talking to people in China and the States and Singapore and all around Europe, and, you know, it really is completely, totally global. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year, I think. G is for gas, and that's nothing to do with too many cruciferous vegetables at the Christmas dinner table. Gas is a small amount of ethereum paid to people who use their computers to record transactions and do other software acts on the Ethereum blockchain. It's the cost of doing business. Remember that cryptocurrencies can't make more money out of the existence of your money in the way that central banks can, such as by fractional reserve lending. So simply processing and sending transactions always has a tiny cost involved for the miners, which has to be paid somewhere along the line. The reason gas is important is that it helps to ensure the right and fair fee is being paid by each transaction submitted to the network. By requiring that a transaction pay for each operation it performs or makes a smart contract perform, we ensure, at least in theory, that the network doesn't become bogged down, performing a lot of intensive work that isn't valuable to anyone. This is a different approach than the Bitcoin transaction fee, which is based only on the size of the transaction. Since Ethereum allows potentially infinitely complex computer code to be run, a short length of instruction could actually result in a lot of computational work happening, even something unstoppable like a denial of service attack, which would paralyze the network for everyone. Check back to episode 7 when we looked at why E was for Ethereum and talked much more about the Ethereum virtual machine, why it's so totally different from Bitcoin. Anyway, it's fair and realistic to pay for the work done directly, instead of a fee based on the length of a transaction or contract. So how do you pay for your gas? It's not quite the same as filling up the tank of your car, or even buying some ETH. Although gas is a unit of measurement based on the cost of 1/1000th of an ETH, there isn't any actual token for gas. It exists only inside the Ethereum virtual machine as a count of how much work is being performed. When it comes to actually paying for the gas, the transaction fee is charged as a number of Ether, the built-in token on the Ethereum network, and the token with which miners are rewarded for producing blocks. Gas is calculated by multiplying a very small amount of Ethereum, known as the gas price or gwei, and multiplying that by how much gwei you want to spend, which is known as the gas limit. It could be gwei. I've never actually heard it pronounced. Because the rate of exchange is 1 Ethereum equals 1 billion gwei, gas costs are usually very small. In practice, it's usually sufficient just to make sure you don't quite spend all the ETH in your wallet at any given time. If the amount of gas present is insufficient to complete the work will fail and the transaction won't complete, though the work has still been done, so you still pay the gas fee in fairness to the miner. On the other hand, you can sometimes pay a bit more gas and expect the computers to complete your task sooner. Think of the gas price as the hourly wage for the miner and the gas cost as the actual fee for the work performed. In practice, it's easier just to accept the gas limits recommended by whichever wallet or exchange you're using and accept it as the cost of doing business on the Ethereum blockchain. But thank you for being with us in 2018 with the launch of this podcast. It's wonderful that so many people have enjoyed it and fed back to us. We always love to know what you think about it, so please join our communities. You'll find all the links in the show notes for how to do that. Come and tell us what you think. Come and tell us what you would like to see from Crypto Confidence in 2019. For now, it just remains to wish you everything you hope to gain personally from the new year ahead. Health and happiness to your family, and may all your dreams come true. You just listened to a brand new episode of the Crypto Confidence podcast. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please do take the time to like, subscribe and review us wherever you go to get your podcasts. And you can connect with us at CryptoConfPod on Twitter and in many other ways. Do check out the show notes for full details about how to get in touch. Meanwhile, please remember that nothing in this podcast or our related social media, nor indeed anything else published by BlockSparks OU at any location, is intended as financial, investment or trading advice. Everything we share represents our personal opinions for your information, education and entertainment only. You should not make any decisions based on anything we share with you, not without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with appropriate professional advisors. Crypto Confidence is all about being smart and informed and making the right choices for you. See you in 2 weeks.